Yes. Yes. It's, hysteria. Hysteria is hysteria in its colloquial term. It describes as emotional excesses where somebody loses self-control due to an overwhelming fear. Sometimes due to their past, some sort of huge panic. It could be centered on a body part or imagined problem with that body part. It might not be. It's in the mind. Generally, modern medical professionals' terms they don't use it as a diagnostic term anymore. They have more precise terms like somatization disorder. In the early 1890s, my good friend Freud, well, he's not my friend. In the way that like Prime Minister's questions type, my good friend. Yeah. So he produced a series of articles on hysteria, and by the end of the 1920s, America and the US were very interested in what he understood. He had very uncontroversial ways of treating it. I could say a lot more about his methods, but I won't. There is a term, mass hysteria, which is very interesting. Which used to describe a public reaction, panic, mass panic. So, for example, of a news story, or did Lady Diana, or the Salem witch trials. Anything involving a conspiracy, it seems to be something that this mass hysteria, and a sociological term of a panic. Was World War One an example of mass hysteria? Right. Bloody. Hysteria. In its colloquial use, it describes emotional excesses. People who are hysterical often lose control due to an emotional fear, something in their past, some sort of conflict, or it's quite often centered on a body part or imagined problem with that body part. Generally, modern medical professionals have stopped using the term hysteria as a diagnostic term. Placed in more defined categories such as somatization disorders. In the early 1890s, Freud, my good friend Freud, published. Well, he's not really. Good friend. That Prime Minister's questions. So he produced some articles, and by the 1920s, Britain and the US, they were fans of this Freudian psychoanalytical I could say a bit more about Freud's methods, his theories, his treatments. But there's a lot of jargon, and I won't. I could say a little about mass hysteria. It's used to describe a public reactions, mass public reactions. Those problems in response to news articles. Hysteria was often was connected to things like the Salem witch trials, maybe Lady Di. Lady Di. Panic. was. Drugs, yes, actually, it's interesting drugs. And they weren't actually illegal in Britain until 1916. So at the outbreak of the war, drugs were legal, and retailers capitalised on this. They sold kits that they advertised as "help your friends on the front." Well, and those friends on the front would abuse the use of those kits. They didn't take those pills for pain relief, but as stimulants. So then laws had to change. But up until that point, there hadn't been any abuse of drugs in the Edwardian era. It wasn't until the novelists, the fictional novelists, started to have key characters that took drugs, that then the popular masses could start to abuse them. Oh, shit. World War One, an example. I don't know. I'll leave that to